Hello everyone and welcome back to my channel. Today I wanted to talk about TBRs. So I'm a mood reader, so I don't have an extensive TBR because I know that I'm not going to stick to it, but I do have some books in 2025 that I need to read, so let's go ahead and go over those books. One of my most anticipated reads for this year is Scythe Sparrow. I literally cannot wait to read this book. I am so interested to see what Rose and Fionn are up to because I feel like we have seen very little of them in the series so far. Obviously, like, they came to the rescue and they've had, like, some of those more like hero moments, but I don't know anything about these characters and I am so excited to read more about them. I'm excited to see kind of like where the carnival comes in. I'm excited to see how cotton candy is going to be ruined for me. I'm excited to just see so many different things in this book, and I love the fact that it's like Butcher Blackbird, Love and Lark, Scythe and Sparrow, like the alliteration. But I also love the fact that like the first word in all of them is like kind of like their career. So the butcher, I mean, that's his serial killer name, but it's also like he's a chef. And then we have Leather, he works with leather and goods, Lachlan does. And then with Scythe, I was talking to my husband about this and he was like, oh yeah, that's like an old time like doctor symbol, is like the scythe, because they used to wear it like during like the plague and like that kind of stuff. And I was like, whoa, that is wild. So I cannot wait to see kind of like the more ins and outs and how these books tie together, because Brent Weaver took some time putting the series together and I cannot wait. I'm also excited for Abby Jimenez's new book, Say You'll Remember Me. I love Abby Jimenez. I read her A Part of Your World series in its entirety last year and I loved it. I love the way that she writes like very dynamic characters that aren't necessarily like your normal character that you see in a lot of different romance books. And I think that as she has written, because I also read her Happily Ever Playlist series, and I didn't like that one as much. The last book was really good, so I feel like she's gotten like better and better as the books have gone on, and I think that she's becoming like a better and better writer, so I cannot wait to see what the story is about and like the characters, and I don't know anything about it, but I mean, like, the cover is beautiful. I just can't wait. I am also excited for Emily Henry's new book. I know that that's a highly anticipated book for a lot of people. Now, here's my problem. I am really hoping that this book is a lot more similar to Funny Story than it is Happy Place. I have a lot of issues with Happy Place. The miscommunication throughout that book, the fact that like all of the friends were just like not talking to each other, and if they just had 5-minute conversations, there wouldn't be that many problems. And so for me, I just wanted a lot more from that book, but then I read Funny Story and I almost didn't because I was like, well, maybe Emily Henry's not for me, even though I loved her other books, but that's beside the point. But then I picked up Funny Story. I loved it. I loved Miles. I loved Daphne. I love everything about that story. The fake dating, Miles showing her around town, making her fall in love with this small town. I loved all of it. So I'm really hoping that her next book is going to be more like Funny Story and not so much like Happy Place. I swear, I am so excited for Rio's book. I can't wait to watch Rio fall in love, because as you're reading through the Windy City series, Rio's just like, when will it be my turn? And like, he's young, so like he doesn't necessarily need to be with anybody, but like, I love the fact that he's finally getting his love story. He deserves it, because man, he is just like there and he's seeing all of his best friends fall in love and he's just like completely left out. And I know that all he wants is to be like very much in love, and I cannot wait for this book. I love Rio and I feel like he wasn't featured as much in the last couple books, and so I'm excited to learn more about him, more about his history, and really like see like the whole world. Play Along definitely made me emotional when Kai decided to retire, so I'm really like interested to see kind of like how Kai falls into the next book. I really hope that this series wraps up really beautifully, because I love when we're able to see kind of additional dynamic pieces. I think that Anna Huang in her Twisted series with Twisted Lies really wrapped everything up, and I loved the like extended epilogue that you got to see kind of like everybody living their lives together. So I really hope that we get that in this final book. The last new release book that I'm really excited for is Caught Up. I loved Lights Out. I read that book and I was like, this is hilarious. I definitely think that if you are a person that wants to get into dark romance, but you're a little nervous or you might not necessarily like love dark romance, start with Lights Out, because it's definitely like, I would call it like diet dark romance, because there's dark themes in it, but it's not like super dark compared to like some of the other books that I've read. So I'm really excited to read Caught Up. I'm excited to see like another character in the world, because I feel like in Lights Out, you really got to see just like the FMC and the MMC together, and like obviously the cat and like, some of those aspects, but you didn't really get to see much of their world kind of beyond that. So I'm excited for like new characters to come and play. I'm excited to see them in that book, but like, more in the background and like all this stuff. And I am so excited for this book. So now let's go ahead and talk about books that have already been out for a while that I'm just now getting around to. So one thing that I really want to do is finish the Plan of Barbarian series. It is my goal to read one book a week until I'm done with the series. And I know I was talking to somebody and they said that there's like an additional series that I can read, So that'll probably also be put on my TBR, but I'm loving it. I think I'm like 5 or 6 books in, and I just love how all of these novellas are so dynamic. I think that the author did a really good job introducing us to the world in like the first book, and like then giving us little like breadcrumbs throughout to like know a little bit more about the world, but we don't have to be introduced to like different areas as much, or like if we are, it's kind of like an easy thing to kind of like translate because it's a snowy place with a bunch of caves. So I really like that part because then we're able to kind of dive into the different characters and see the dynamic pieces of each person. I love how all of the FMCs are different. I love how that they're all like struggling through different things. I mean, one person had cancer, another person was waiting for her IUD to fall out, another person was really scared to, be intimate with someone, and so like that way the thing that's in their chest or whatever that's vibrating wasn't vibrating for everybody because like she wasn't ready yet, and like all of those things. And I love the dynamic aspects of all of the characters. I also love that the MMCs in all of the books are also equally dynamic. Like a lot of them are more alpha male because they're like hunter people. So obviously there's going to be a little bit more like aggression and a little bit more like that versus like, maybe more like polished characters in contemporary romances. But I love that they all have like their own unique personalities, their own unique struggles, their own dynamics within like the friend groups. But I do wish that I had seen a little bit more like carryover from like some of the characters throughout the books, and I'm hoping that kind of when all of the characters are fully introduced, then we'll see a little bit more of a dynamic story. I'm on like the last book where the last woman hasn't been like partnered up with a guy yet, so I guess once we get beyond that, I don't know what the stories are gonna look like, but I'm really, really loving this series. Another series on my TBR is Twilight. I have seen all of the movies, but I have never read the books, and I've heard that the books are so different from the movies. And so like I know that there's obviously going to be different aspects and like that kind of stuff, but I am really excited to read the books. I was not a teenager who loved Twilight. I wasn't Team Edward, I wasn't Team Jacob, I wasn't any of it. So I didn't watch the movies until I was in my 20s. And so you get a very different like understanding of kind of like, oh yeah, Bella's completely unhinged and like poor Charlie is just so confused and lost this entire time. But I've heard from a friend who loves Twilight that the books are a little bit more dynamic. You kind of like understand Bella a little bit more. She doesn't seem so like, I don't know, weird or ditzy or whatever it is kind of in the movie that kind of rubs you a little bit of a wrong way in the first couple movies. So I am really excited to read them. I actually have the first book out from my library, so I think I might be planning on doing like a read along kind of thing where I just talk about it as I read it, because if it's going to be that different from the movies or even like a little bit different from the movies, I am really excited to read it because there were so many cringy moments in the movies, and I just feel like the books are going to give me even more information to either cringe about or be excited about. So I am very excited, and I'm hoping to read that entire series within the next, I don't know, month or two. So that'll be good. I love Mariana Zapata. I have read a handful of her books and I absolutely love, but I need to read more. And I feel like every time I talk about All Roads Lead Here, which is my favorite book, maybe of all time, it's definitely my favorite Mariana Zapata book, and it's definitely a book that I think about all the time. But I'm thinking that maybe I need to read more of her books, which I probably should be reading more of her books because I rave about her books a lot. And so I need to go through her catalog and read some of them. I'm thinking I'm going to start with From Lukov with Love, and I've also heard really good things about Gracie and the Grump. So those are two that I'm going to pick up. I know that Culty is another good one, and my thing is that since Mariana Zapata's books are slow burns, and since they're kind of like longer, it takes me a little bit more to like feel fully invested in them, and so that's maybe why I've pushed them off for a bit. But I'm thinking that this is the year that I read, I don't know, maybe 5, 6, 7 of her books. My goal is 125 books, so I will have plenty of time to read whatever, but I'm thinking that I definitely need to give more of her books a read. And don't be mad at me, but I haven't started the Rose Hill series by Elsie Silver. So here's my issue. I crushed her Chestnut Spring series, and then I was left to read Hopeless, and I was like, oh, okay, yeah, that's fine. So then I had to wait a couple months to read Hopeless, and then Hopeless was a little bit of a disappointment for me. So I was like, you know what? Maybe this is just like not for me. I maybe need to have like these series completed so that I can just kind of like crush through them. But I'm hearing really good things about all of the books, and so I'm getting FOMO. And so now I'm 2, 3 books behind on the series. So I'm like, you know what? It's the time. Now is the time to read these books. So I have decided that this year I'm going to read them. I don't love the fact that all of them are single dad romance books. I love a single dad. I love a grumpy single dad, don't get me wrong, but I am not quite sure how you can write single dads so completely differently that a book series of it, is it 5 books, can have so many different dynamic characters. So that makes me a little bit nervous for it, but I've heard they're really good. I just don't want it to be repetitive because I feel like when you get into like single dad territory, a lot of the books can be repetitive, and I'm always going to compare them to Cade because he is the ultimate single dad and I'm obsessed with him. So I'm really hoping that the series will be better than what I'm expecting, and I know that people love it. I know I'm probably going to love it, but for me, I'm just a little hesitant for some reason. And then I have a long list of books that I have read one book in the series. And okay, so here's my issue. I am one of those people who will look at a book that's recommended and I will read just that book and I will not go back and read the other books in the series. But there are a handful of series that I've been told are so good that I need to go back and read them. So there's going to be a lot of like going back and completing series for me. So Protecting What's Mine is my favorite firefighter romance, and it is the 3rd book in a series, and so I need to go back and read the other 2. I've already been introduced to the characters. I already know that I like Lucy Square's writing, so I'm sure I'm going to love these books, but for some reason I was like, I wanted the firefighter romance. I didn't want anything else. But I definitely need to go back and read that series. Another one is I read Finn Roads Forever. I was doing a video talking about men with like secret tattoos, and he has a secret tattoo, so I was like, okay, I need to read this book. It was so good. If you are a second chance romance hater like I am, you need to read this book because I swear the second chance romance is just way better than I would have ever expected. So this book, really good. I've heard that the entire series is bomb. So I'm like, okay, you know what? Let me go ahead and let me go back and read the rest of the books. So that's on my TBR. When I end up getting to that, we'll see because I have a lot of books that I want to read, but I definitely feel like I need to go back and read this entire series because I've heard so many good things about it. And Devney Perry, I am reading her Eden series. I've read 3 books in it and I need to finish the series. So that's a series that's definitely on my TBR to be finished. I'm hoping to finish that in the next couple months because I'm really enjoying the series. I just got distracted by Christmas books, so I wasn't able to finish the series as much as I wanted to, and I wasn't able to focus time to it. So I will be focusing time to it. And once I finish that, I'm thinking that I need to go back and read some of her other books. I really like her style of writing. I read her book Rally, which is a like accidental pregnancy book, just because I heard that it was so good, and it was amazing. So I know that Devney Perry is the author for me. However, she has a lot of books, so there is a big backlog that I need to read. So I'm hoping that I'll be able to make some headway and read some more of her books this year. We'll see how well I stick to this TBR because like I said, I'm a mood reader and who knows what I'm going to do. But as always, thank you for being here. If you want any other videos, just let me know in the comments. And then if you want to follow me on Bookstagram or Book Talk, here's my @